Welcome and hello to the Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation in Rio Rancho. I'm Dana Sanford, Worship Associate for today. Our speaker is Reverend Nancy Hitt, our Consulting Minister. Our Father's Day service today is titled, In Spite of the Patriarchy. It is founded on Principle 3. It's on Principle 1. The inherent worth and dignity of every person. Source 2, words and deeds of prophetic women and men who challenge us to confront powers of structure and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and transforming power of love. We hope you find these upheld in new ways in today's program. Our thanks today to Carol for her behind-the-scenes work with our music and technology. If you have never visited Westside before, we welcome you. We hope that you visit our on-site when that becomes possible. Until then, please feel free to email the church office with any questions. Our email address is on our website. Here are the announcements for today. Our social justice team met via Zoom on Tuesday evening and discussed a number of issues. As a result, we will be holding a food drive for Storehouse West on the first Sunday of every month throughout the remainder of the pandemic. In order to collect your contribution, we will staff the building from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the first Sunday of every month. You may bring your donations to the basket that will be located outside the social hall door under our pergola. The donations will not be unsupervised at any time. They do not need any special preparation before they being dropped off. Please wear a mask while you are making your donation. Jay and Laurel will be ready and waiting for you on July 5th, our first Sunday. You will find specific information about the Storehouse West needs in your recent church email. Reverend Nancy is asking that people forward their joys and concerns to her so that we may include them in our service. You may email or phone her or ask your telephone network person to pass them along. Thank you. As of this past week, our newly necessary building maintenance fund has met the estimated cost of supplies to repair the wood rot on our building. This is fantastic. We will begin repairs as soon as possible. Any unspent funding that you have contributed to this project will be held and applied to future building maintenance needs like paint to protect the fresh new wood. If there are any issues you would like to update about or announcements you would like to share with the congregation, please email them to Reverend Nancy so that they may be included here in our weekly video and in our weekly email blast. I invite you now to draw your personal candle or chalice closer to you and to join me in the words of our chalice lighting as you receive them in your email. May our chalice flame illuminate the many paths of fatherhood. May we understand where we have come from, accept and celebrate where we are today, and prepare for a future that beckons us brightly. Shalom and amen. Please join me in affirming our aspirations together. The words are found in your email. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. We dwell together in peace to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom. Nancy will now lead us in our moment for centering.
I invite you now to sit back and relax wherever you may be. Close your eyes gently. Let your mind just go blank. Focus on your breath, breathing in and out, slowly and deeply, relaxing into the rhythm of your own body, into the openness of your mind's eye. Let a memory of a time that you felt well cared for appear. It could be from any age, by any other person. Let that feeling of belonging flood your awareness. The feeling of being loved. The feeling of satisfaction that your needs are met. Revel in this life-giving feeling. Relax into it and rest. Hold this experience gently in your mind as you refocus on your breath. Breathing slowly and deeply, still feeling well cared for. Breathing in and breathing out, relaxed in your body, your mind, and your spirit. And then slowly begin to return your awareness to the here and now. And when you are ready, open your eyes. Shalom. I invite you now to draw your personal joys and concerns candle closer to you. We will light them together at the close of our sharing and meditation. We have several joys and concerns before us this week, both from our own congregation and the world around us. We continue to hold Jimmy in our thoughts and prayers as he recuperates from the multiple falls he has sustained. With him, we hope that his healthcare team can identify the cause and prescribe a treatment that will return him to health. We also continue to hold Bram's brother-in-law in our thoughts and prayers as he begins a new chapter in his life as a new widower. He has moved back here to New Mexico. We hope that he is able to settle in comfortably and find a network of meaningful support as he grieves his wife's recent death. For Jamie, we hold concern. She broke a number of bones in her foot this past week. We wish her a speedy and pain-free healing. And with Susan, we grieve the loss of her longtime friend and companion. Her cat, Stephen, has died this past week. Many of us know the joy of having a pet and the grief of losing one. Our thoughts and prayers are with her today. We also share joys as we celebrate Melinda and Eric's 21st wedding anniversary this past Friday. They took a trip up into the mountains and enjoyed lunch out to mark the occasion. They are also glad to be able to be celebrating Father's Day with Melinda's dad in Santa Fe, masked and outside on the porch to keep everyone safe. With Stacy, we share joy that she will be returning to work on Monday. The smile on the face of the little boy that she nannies for says it all. He looks radiant. We also rejoice at the generosity of our own community in supplying funding for our necessary building repairs. It can be difficult to maintain an investment in a building that we aren't currently able to use. It is a joy to know how much we all care about our home base despite our absence from it. We also share both joy and deep concern for the world events we have experienced this past week. We rejoice in meaningful conversation and constructive social change in response to issues of racism and police violence. We observe Juneteenth and its significance for all Black Americans with solemn joy. New paths are being identified into a future that looks brighter and better for everyone, particularly the victims of racism and violence. We also continue to hold deep concern for the ongoing practice of racism and violence in our social institutions, our historical monuments, and in the response of civilians to the challenge to change. We hope that dialogue continues and moves into constructive action. We hope that enlightenment occurs, especially where people are unaware that they even need it. We hope that peaceful interventions can be perceived as powerful without prompting violence. For all these hopes and joys and concerns, for all that we still hold in our own hearts and minds, we light our white candle. Thank you. For all the victims of racial violence here in New Mexico, in the United States, and around the world, we light this red candle to honor their struggle and remember their lives. Shalom. Now Bram will share our animal ministry moment with you.
Hello. When you pet a dog or listen to a cat purring, thinking may subside for a moment and a space of stillness arises within you, a doorway into being. Now this poem is about a kitty, and it says, I panicked, I flinched, I lashed out, I drew blood from the family dog's nose. I'm more monster than kitten, I'm more beast than pet. I'm being left alone. The dog is under the bed. I'm going to remember this trick. And now Reverend Nancy will bring you the story for all ages.
So today, we once again have a special guest who, oddly enough, like the rest of our special guests, lives in this very lectern. So today we have with us our good friend, Olivia the Ostrich. Now, she is here for a very special reason. Olivia wants us to know a whole lot of things about her dad. Because you see, she's pretty sure that we don't know anything, no, probably nothing, about ostrich fathers. So, first off, we all need to know that ostriches do not ever hide their heads in the sand. It just doesn't happen. Apparently, someone once upon a time observed a mother ostrich digging a shallow hole in the sand for her nest to put the eggs in, and somehow thought that because her head was down there digging around, that ostriches bury their heads in the sand. They don't, but they do build nests, round circular nests down into the sand. And the amazing thing is that while Olivia's mother was very important in her upbringing, her father was also pretty darn amazing. Besides, Olivia says they can't hide their heads in the sand because they're too busy taking care of the chicks, which is what Olivia was at that point in time. Here's the way that it works. The ostrich is the largest living bird, and they are powerful runners. They go really, really fast. They grow as big as 7 to 9 feet. Olivia's not that big yet, but maybe someday she'll get there, in which case I'm going to need more than this podium to have her call home. However, ostriches can run at a sustained pace of 31 miles per hour. And if they're just sprinting really quickly, they can get up to 45 miles an hour. Although their wings do not allow them to fly, they actually can kick. Ostriches have really tall, long legs, and those legs can kick at a force of up to 2,000 pounds per square inch. You do not want to be on the receiving end of that. That's a lot of power. And those long legs mean that they can take really big steps. Each step could be anywhere from 10 to 16 feet long. Now, when it comes to being a parent, each male ostrich has a primary female, a favorite, who takes turns incubating eggs with him. Even though other female ostriches will lay eggs, potentially from different male ostriches, in the same nest. So each little ostrich nest is actually a village incubating. When we say it takes a village, think of the ostriches in a whole new way. The dads, it turns out, are the protectors of the night. They take turns with the mate, with the mother, incubating the eggs, but the dads work the night shift because they are darker in color, and in the night, you can't see the male ostrich. It's as if they're hidden because their dark feathers blend right in. So they're less notable, and the nest is safer from predators. Once the eggs hatch, the dads use their gigantic wings to shield their chicks, both from terrible weather and to protect them from predators. The idea that male ostriches really need to be sure of the paternity of their chicks before they provide care for them, that's clearly not a universal thing, because male ostriches, they take care of every baby chick in that nest, regardless of who it belongs to. If it's in their nest, it belongs to them. And having lots of different eggs in a nest is an advantage because a predator can't steal all of them, so some of the eggs might survive if they pack a lot of them in. By taking on the protection and the incubation of what might be another male ostrich's offspring, the guardian male, also known as dad, is protecting his own. Now you might be interested to know, see these little feathers down here? do you know what ostrich feathers symbolize? Well, ostrich feathers symbolize the hope for new life or for life after death. Those are both really cool things. Now, Olivia says that she and her nestmates gave their dad a real run for his money. They were always up to no good, hiding and taking turns sneaking out of the nest a lot. But her dad, he just used those long legs to scoop them all back in, outrun the chicks, and sweep them back into the nest with his wings and with his beak, because this long neck works for lots of good tricks too. He was a really good dad who kept them safe all night. Since baby ostriches hatch fully feathered and able to walk almost immediately, there were a lot of walks with Dad and the flock that they were part of. You see, ostriches form flocks in the wild for safety. They are often very communal creatures. And Olivia says her dad took excellent care of her flock. Thanks, Olivia. That was really interesting. I learned a whole bunch of stuff that I had no idea happened in our world. So Olivia is going to say goodbye, and we're going to let her go back down into her little hidey house. Now Dana will speak to our gifts of love and commitment.
Your gifts of love and commitment are what sustain our congregation and enable us to engage with each other and with the community at large. Our sincere thanks to those of you who contributed to our building maintenance fund, along with our thanks to everyone who has been so responsible about getting their pledges and other financial contributions to us. We are currently able to meet our financial needs, which is a really good thing. You may mail your contributions to P.O. Box 15146 in Rio Rancho, or use the PayPal button on our website. Thank you. Now Nancy will share a reading from our hymnal with you.
I am reading today a passage from the back of our hymnal. It is number 649. It is titled From Generation to Generation. And I think that as a theme makes a whole lot of sense in regard to the fact that you're probably watching this on Father's Day. In a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart, laughter and tears, musings and deeds. Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses the gulf between the generations. Therefore, we do not neglect the ceremonies of our passage. When we wed, when we die, and when we are blessed with a child, when we depart and when we return, when we plant and when we harvest. Let us bring up our children. It is not the place of some official to hand them their heritage. If others impart to our children our knowledge and ideals, they will lose all of us that is wordless and full of wonder. Let us build memories in our children, lest they drag out joyless lives, lest they allow treasures to be lost because they have not been given the keys. We live not by things, but by the meaning of things. It is needful to transmit the passwords from generation to generation. Shalom. This sermon is titled, In Spite of the Patriarchy, because in recent years, as our culture evolves better and better understanding of how our patriarchal systems constrict both women and men in undesirable ways, it's become difficult to celebrate traditional occasions that have been heavily influenced by patriarchy. Which doesn't mean that there's nothing to celebrate. On the contrary, we need to be very careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to hold on to the good and the meaningful aspects of our human history and not let any of our achievements be obscured by patriarchy. So today, I'd like to take us on a short jaunt through human history and the variety of roles that fathers have had. There is a lot to celebrate despite the patriarchy. So to begin with, let's look at the world of nature. Often, when a new social behavior develops among people, or an established behavior becomes the focus for people's awareness, the change is jarring. It's often perceived as a threat to whatever the status quo has been. People debate about it, we argue about it. Some of us refuse to accept it, and some of us rush to embrace it. Many of us look around to see who else on earth is doing this thing, this new thing. We ask the question, is it natural? Can we find other examples of this behavior in the world of nature? Or did some person just make it up and try to get us all to buy into their idea? And if it's made up, it's usually suspect. We like the idea that nature is uninfluenced by people, hence the distinction between what is natural and artificial, born of artifice or a human trick or sleight of hand, not natural. If a behavior is known to occur in nature, it is quite literally described as natural and often used as a standard of measure when it comes to what is appropriate for people. But there's a trick to this. Nature covers the whole planet with more life forms than we can even count. What part of nature should we look for guidance about what is natural in regard to fatherhood? If we look in some directions, we discover that adult male animals have contributed all they can just by impregnating adult female animals. Then the males are off to hunt and play and establish territories for themselves. They have no further role in the lives of their children. Now, if that was the only natural image for fatherhood, our human lives would likely look very different. But it isn't. As Olivia helpfully informed us today, there are other totally natural patterns for fatherhood found in nature. You're probably familiar with a few of them. Many of us have heard that male seahorses carry their developing offspring in a special sack until they are ready to be released on their own in the ocean. The father literally gives birth, complete with contractions of labor. We may have also seen pictures of emperor penguins with their fluffy little chicks sitting on top of their feet after having gestated in their father's brood pouch. Those penguin dads are devoted. They spend 2 months incubating the chicks and then feed them themselves until the chicks' mothers return to take up the task a week or so later. Both parents are then actively involved in the care and feeding of their chick. But perhaps no group of animals, and this really blew me away, contains as many dedicated fathers as, are you ready for this? Frogs and toads. Seriously, there are frog fathers that carry their tadpoles in their mouths, often refusing to eat until the tadpoles are old enough to survive on their own. Other frog fathers embed their spawn in their skin, often on their backs or legs, such as with the aptly named midwife toad. The father toad has these little white bumps all over his back and legs, within which are his developing babies. Now that's dedication. And despite their fearsome reputation as predators, male wolves are attentive, monogamous, and fiercely protective dads that live with their mates for life. A wolf pack is essentially a classic nuclear family consisting of mom, dad, and their kids. After a female wolf gives birth, she sticks close to her helpless pups and doesn't leave her den for several weeks. Dad stands guard and hunts for food to share with his new family. He doesn't skimp when it comes to sharing edibles with his progeny. As the young pups grow, Dad takes on the role of a stern and sometimes playful mentor, helping integrate the pups into the pack. So, fish, amphibians, birds, and mammals. There are examples in all of these kinds of creatures on our planet of devoted dads. There are also lots of variations on that theme. Sometimes dads have a particular role, and other times they share the whole parenting experience with the mothers of their young. But the bottom line is that nature gives us a whole range of examples about how to be a father. There is no single right way. Mother Nature builds in big implications for humanity. Now, what about our human history? How have human men been fathers to their children? Well, scientists propose, because there are no surviving videos or written documents, that prehistoric human families took a while to develop into something that we would recognize as a family today. Initially, it is unlikely that males or females were monogamous. Women and children were small units struggling to survive. Males who provided food increased the possibility for survival and gained access to the sexual favors of the women, which apparently motivated some men to be good providers. Over the course of time, family units of 2 parents plus children grew to be a pattern. As this happened, so did the growth of patriarchy. Men were physically larger and had more freedom to move around since they were never physically burdened with pregnancy or small children. Patriarchy was probably not a conscious design by anyone in the beginning. It evolved out of the risks and needs of life in extremely perilous times. Picture it. A nursing mother goes on a hunt, baby in an animal skin sling held close to her body, and prey is sighted. And then the baby cries, howling, alerting what would have been their next meal of their intent to hunt and kill it. All of a sudden, no matter how good that woman is with a spear or a slingshot, her presence with that child is a liability. So she stays home, gathering edible plants to supplement the meat diet while caring for her child. And over time, she begins to plant what they will eat, not just harvest it, introducing a pattern in which both parents provide for the family, but the larger bones and muscles of the male equip him for roaming far afield in his pursuit of food, for protecting his family from predators, for establishing the boundaries of what he regards as his. And down through the ages, the patriarchal role of men as the primary providers and owners is born. And for a while, it worked. Until it didn't. And when it didn't, it was because women had discovered that they were just as good, if not better, at many of the specific tasks ascribed to men. The women weren't interested in maintaining the patriarchy that kept them barefoot and pregnant. They wanted to use their brains with the same power and privilege that men did. And they proved that by and large, they were pretty good at it, which left men with a dilemma. If they didn't need to focus their energy on protection and providing food and housing and all the other accoutrements of life, they could have a whole different kind of relationship with their families, both wives and children. They could definitely be a different kind of dad than the model that was handed to them as traditional. And so they did. They still spent a lot of time doing the stuff they'd done for centuries. After all, old habits die hard, especially when they offer personal gain and power over others as part of their practice. It is hard for almost anyone to resist that temptation. But they also did a lot of new to them things that were once thought of as unnatural. Fathers showed up in delivery rooms. They showed up in the kitchen, cooking supper. They showed up in the nursery, changing diapers. They showed up at parent-teacher conferences and dance and music recitals while they coached sports teams and went camping with their kids. Some fathers stayed home full-time with their kids while their mother went to work. Some fathers took daughters to work, at least on special occasions. Instead of being the local authority who just dropped in to solve problems or cause them, fathers became live-in advisors for the lives their children were living. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. 7/8 of what fathers learned how to do was the behind-the-scenes adjustment to their new role as fathers. Fathers were now encouraged to be actively involved in all aspects of their children's lives. They acquired titles like mentor, advisor, role model. Their own thinking about themselves as fathers, along with that of the society they lived in, grew exponentially. Now, not all fathers were able to succeed at this new program. Some failed miserably, taking their frustration with the changes and the new demands on them out on their kids. Some became estranged from their children. For some, fatherhood was a source of pain, marked by unmet expectations and failure. But many succeeded in amazing new ways. They made movies like Mr. Mom and Mrs. Doubtfire that showed off their commitment and their skills at fathering. And most coped with the new social patterns and grew into pretty decent dads. They held positions of meaning in the lives of their children. The changes are ongoing. The role of fathers in the lives of their children continues to be a creative and cutting-edge element of the society that we live in. Despite the reality of the historical patriarchy, lots of dads have moved on to grow and develop as deeper, better human beings. They have a new sense of self and a new sense of their children. And wherever that happens, there is love and happiness and healthy human relationships. In America, Father's Day was founded by Sonora Smart Dodd and celebrated on the third Sunday of June for the first time in 1910. It is held on various days in many parts of the world all throughout the year, often in the months of March, May, and June. You see, Mrs. Dodd's father raised 6 children after the death of his wife in childbirth. He was their primary caregiver and provider. And when Ms. Dodd heard about the newly created Mother's Day phenomenon, she wanted a similar day in which to recognize her father and all fathers. Its observance evolved through the years until then President Nixon signed it into law as the third Sunday of June in 1976. Since that time, our country has continued to celebrate the contributions that fathers make to our families and our nation on that day. I find it really intriguing that it is in honor of a man who nurtured his family in ways that women customarily did, especially in that day and time, that Father's Day was started. It was never intended to be a day to celebrate anything patriarchal. It's changed a lot over the years. Keeping a stiff upper lip and being a wise but distant figure has changed into a model of fatherhood that incorporates lots of hands-on care and deeply meaningful interpersonal relationships with one's children. Our lives have been enriched by these all-natural and always evolving patterns of fatherhood. I hope that your Father's Day is filled with joy, the joy of memory, the joy of lived experience, the joy of loving and knowing that you are loved. For all of the fathers, stepfathers, foster fathers, grandfathers, biological fathers, adopted fathers, and any other kind of father that you have ever been or known, for anyone who has ever been called dad by a child who loved them, happy Father's Day. Shalom and amen. We invite you again to comment and share feedback either in the comment section underneath our video on our website or by emailing me directly at ministeruuwc@gmail.com. Thank you. Your feedback is really deeply appreciated. I invite you now to please join me in extinguishing our chalices together. The words are in the email that you've received. We extinguish our flame, but not the passion for healthy, loving relationships with our fathers that it has illuminated. May we incorporate our learning and our longing into a brilliant future that will nurture both dads and kids. Shalom and amen. May you apply history and hope to your concept of fatherhood. May you support the efforts of fathers of every kind. May you find meaningful images to help you celebrate the realities of this day. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you. Everywhere you may go, whoever you are with, and however you have need. Shalom and amen.